because you are poor. Inequalities, there are many: education, jobs, whatever. But health is very, very important. Now, the next question is to ask, what are the causes? What are the causes of these health inequalities and health in general? Typically, many people, when asked about the causes of health or causes of health inequalities, typically they say, okay, this is due to biological factors, genetic factors, healthcare, lifestyle, this type of things. Is this important? Yes, this is important. Biology matters, healthcare is very relevant for the population, lifestyle are also important, is an important factor. But remember, in the case of genetics, only a small percentage of diseases are only due to genetics. In the case of healthcare, when you go to a hospital, you go to a hospital because you have a problem. Now, why you have a problem? That's the question we are asking in public health. I'm going to focus for a moment in the issue of lifestyle. Lifestyle is very commonly, it's a prevalent view of the causes of health and health inequalities for many. And this is what Geoffrey Rose, the brilliant British epidemiologist, said when he talked about the immediate or proximal causes of disease are the subject of medical research. They include factors as infectious agents, dietary deficiencies, smoking, etc., etc. And of course, governments know that, and we know that for many governments in the world, they have made recommendations according to many different lifestyles. For example, we see things like, you know that, don't smoke, if you can, stop, follow a balanced diet, make exercise, manage stress, blah, 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 all these things. Right? But Geoffrey Rose also talked about something else, and this something else is what he called the causes of the causes. What are the causes of biological factors? What are the causes of lifestyle differences, and so on and so forth? So he called these the causes of the causes, the determinants of exposure to these infections, bad diet, blah, blah, blah. These are a matter, he said, of social, economic, and political research. And this is important because this social, political, and economic research is important for public health, is very relevant for public health. So public health does not only deal with medical research. That's a profound mistake. Medical research is important, but it's not the only thing. So some years ago, another social epidemiologist, another British social epidemiologist, made a kind of joke. And he tried to put a list of recommendations that are complementary to the list we just saw. Which is this list? So this list is, don't be poor. But if you can, stop. If you cannot, try not to be poor for too long. Don't live in a deprived area. But if you do, move. Don't work in a stressful, low-paid manual job. Don't live in a dam with a low-quality housing, and so on and so forth. What's the story here? The story here is that one cannot necessarily choose their own lifestyle, but there is something else. And this is something else is the issue that we are going to talk later, which is social determinants of health and social determinants of health inequalities, including political factors. I'm going to use an example to illustrate this issue of lifestyle and other factors. And this example is nutrition. Nutrition is important for public health. This is the map of the world hunger with percentage of population undernourished. You know, similar to the map we saw before. And today a lot of people, a lot of children still die from this malnutrition. But today we have another problem. And this other problem is that we are living in a planet full of hunger and obesity. The overall number of hungry people is about 1,000 million people. 1,000 million people. But today there are about 400 million obese and 1,600 million overweight. So that's important. Of course, the issue then is not hunger, not only hunger, it's also obesity. And this has gone to the magazine, to the media, to the different press, so that we see that the topic of obesity is around. At the same time, of course, in scientific research, there are studies, reports, research that try to investigate why is that there is this epidemic of obesity. An epidemic that is important, about 40%, maybe a little less, as an average, of people have suffered from overweight, and then plus 20-25% with obese makes a huge number, a very large number of people with both either overweight or obesity. The distribution of obesity in the world is different. We can see here in this graph how in poor income countries obesity is more prevalent among the rich, but in high income countries obesity is more prevalent among the poor. So trends are different and trends are changing. Probably we expect that in the next future what's going to happen is that both in low and high income countries obesity is going to be more prevalent among the poor. This has, of course, important consequences for health. For example, in the United States, this worrisome trend shows that from 1990s to close to now, obesity, more states and states are getting red, meaning more people is obese, at the same time that more and more states also show diabetes. So diabetes is closely linked to obesity, as we know, so that's important. Now, who has the obesity, who has the problems related to obesity? For example, a very known study, which is British study, white-collar study, conducted, maybe there are 200, 300 papers in white-collar study, show that by grade of employment, so these guys, people, are people who have the highest position in the city council. They are civil servants in London, in United Kingdom, and this for men and for women, and these guys have the worst position at the workplace. Low salaries, worse situation. What happened is the same gradient in terms of cholesterol. So people embodies inside the body the social problems and shows as a biological factor, which is in this case cholesterol. Now, what are the causes? What are the causes of obesity? Well, again, what happens is that biomedical research today is so prevalent, so dominant, so many people believe that genetics and these type of things that are so important, that we see many papers, like for example this one a couple of years ago, New England Journal of Medicine, saying that obesity is very much linked to genes that are related, and the media shows that. So genetics of obesity, scientists find the genetic cause of obesity, and so on. Now, the social determinants of health report, of WHO report, stress a different perspective. And this different perspective is, for example, showing that there is another world. For example, the case of the rise of fast food. Fast food in many countries is going up, is increasing. People who consume fast food. And in the words of WHO report that I'm going to talk later, they say that obesity is not a moral problem. It's not. It's a problem due, it's not a moral problem due to one person. It's like blaming the victim. You are obese because you want. That's the lifestyle type of standard approach. No. It's because an excess availability of foods rich in fats and sugars. The global epidemic of obesity is a good example of producing a health problem, a public health problem, which is socially produced by a constellation of changes in social factors. Now, these social factors are several, are many, but in public health and from the perspective of health inequalities, we need to talk about what we, following Jeffrey Rose, what can be said, causes of the causes, or in the words of another sociologist, Bruce Lin and John Felon, many years ago, they talk about the fundamental social causes of disease. Fundamental. There are many causes. All of them are causes, but some causes are more important than others for public health. So many social conditions are what we have called fundamental social causes of disease. Resources, knowledge, money, power, prestige, social connections that strongly influences people's ability to avoid risk. For example, obesity, right, or many others. And these fundamental causes are linked to multiple disease outcomes through multiple risk factor mechanisms. That's why the standard risk factor epidemiology does not work very well with health inequalities, because the standard risk factor epidemiology typically deals with one risk factor. But here we are not talking about one risk factor. We are talking about a constellation of factors that are related to the social class and many other factors. That's one thing. The other thing important to keep in mind is that there are even more structural factors, the structural causes that relates to issues of power. And in that case, we need to be aware of what we can call the world food industrial complex. And what is that? This is the amount of huge, important economic corporations in the food industry. Starting with chain of restaurants, McDonald's, but Burger King, but going with the supermarket chains, going to the preparation of pre-cooked foods, Kraft, Unilever, and so on. And, you know, buying, transporting, processing, selling vegetables, Cargill, ADM, and so on. Biogenetics, seeds, pesticides, all of this, it's a very, very complex picture that is very much related, I believe, with the epidemic of overweight and obesity we are dealing today. Today one can eat something which is tasty, good, tastes good, but basically it's